in my opening rant here about big power, I basically identified the problem that we have is these giant power companies and the centralization of power. But let me generalize this and give you other examples. Bigger is not only not better, bigger is more fragile, and it doesn't just apply to power systems. You have 5 or 6 banks now that are holding assets equal to 65% of the GDP of the United States. The big banks, the too big to fail, too big to jail banks from the 2008 crash, they're bigger now than they were then. Is that a good thing? I don't think so. And it's not just the banks. It used to be if you went out and looked, before Reagan, and if you're one of the young people listening to this program or watching this program, go ask somebody who's over 50. Ask them what it was like to walk into a mall or walk around the downtown of any city in America before Ronald Reagan became president. And what they will tell you is that every mall and every downtown was filled with small, locally owned businesses. And sometimes those businesses had been in the same families for 2 generations, 3 generations, 4 generations. We had businesses that literally tracked their founding back to the founding of this republic. And they're virtually all gone now. Because Ronald Reagan in 1982 stopped enforcing the Sherman Antitrust Act. This led to an explosion of mergers and acquisitions. The M&A mania, they called it. You had these guys call themselves M&A artists. In fact, I saw that phrase in the Financial Times this last weekend. Who are the world's best M&A artists? Right. And what these people do is they buy up small businesses and they put them into large businesses. And the rationale is, if you've got a medium-sized town of, say, 250,000 people, and there's 15 different stationery shops in that town selling office supplies and pens and papers and wastebaskets and whatever, and each one of those 15 different companies, each one of those 15 different stores is owned by a separate family that started that business in that neighborhood, and they've been there for a couple of generations. Each one of those 15 companies has their own bookkeeper. Each one has their own manager. Each one has their own checking account. Each one has their own contract to have their trash picked up. Each one has their own contract to have their driveway plowed or their street cleaned if they live in the snow belt. Each one does their own marketing and advertising and has their own ad agency or does their own person within their organization that's responsible for getting the word out. And that if somebody came along and bought all 15 of those companies and put them under one umbrella, you could lay off half their employees. You don't need 15 accounting offices. You only need one. You don't need 15 marketing people. You only need one. You don't need 15 purchasing agents. You only need one. You don't need 15 people, managing the stores. 1, 2, maybe 3. And so it becomes much more efficient, which means in aggregate, these 15 stores all become much more profitable. Now, that sounds like a good thing. This is how this was sold to us back in the 80s when Reagan said, I'm not going to enforce the Sherman Act anymore. And it's how it was sold to us throughout the Reagan administration, throughout the George Herbert Walker Bush administration, throughout the Bill Clinton administration, throughout the George W. Bush administration, and it continues to be sold to us during the Obama administration by Republicans and Democrats alike. I want to tell you, I'm a fan of inefficiency. There are times when you have to say, it's not a good thing to be efficient. Because with efficiency comes fragility, a lack of resilience. Yes, it would be more efficient if all 15 of those stationery stores were owned by one company or one person. It would be more efficient, more profitable. But now you've wiped out 14 families' livelihoods. You've put out of work, probably 30, 40, 50 people. you have changed a diverse ecosystem where you had 15 different companies in different parts of town all doing something in different ways, and then others would say, it would develop innovations and say somebody starts a new kind of product or develops a new way to sell it, and others go, oh, that's a good idea. All that innovation goes out the window. Have you noticed how software, computers, retailing, innovation is largely dead in America. Anybody comes up with a good idea in computers, for example, Microsoft just buys it, incorporates it, it becomes part of the monopoly. The rare innovation that does come along just gets inhaled. This is not good. Whether it's stationary stores, whether it's retail restaurant chains, you used to have, a dozen different, 15 different, I grew up in Lansing, Michigan. There were probably 20, 30 different family-owned Italian restaurants in town. Now it's Olive Garden. It used to be local bars. Now it's TGI Fridays or Ruby Tuesdays. India had, up until recently, a law that said that no company or individual or family could own more than 2 retail stores in the entire country. And so they had hundreds of thousands of local retailers. Very inefficient. Very resilient. It's good for a country. We have entered over the last 32 years as a consequence of libertarian theology and Raganomics, a period of mass insanity that has made our country so fragile that we are on the path to the crash of 2016. Because when that one company that owns all 15 of those stationary stores goes out of business, they're all gone.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
And when they're run in a way that extracts the most profit for the smallest number of people, they will go out of business when challenged by tough economic times.